Erev Tov, everyone. It is, what is it? It's Tuesday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the Maimon Beit Knesset. Therefore, it must be the Rabbis Discuss. And we discuss whatever it is that we want to discuss. So, Rabbi Ancel is with us. Let me, let's put his picture up there so you can see who we're actually talking to, and we'll bring Rabbi Ancel on. You are on.
Shalom, everybody. Welcome back. It's been a long summer and a hot one.
Yeah.
But thank you, Hashem, for bringing us back together. Hopefully everybody's healthy and feeling well. So tonight we are going to discuss Judaism as it was and the way it is now.
Okay, so before we get into that, let's check and see who we have in the chat room. We have Donald, as usual, and we have
Donald.
Rabbi Wyckoff is in the chat room, and Richard, and Marshall, and those watching in the background, and those who will be filtering in as we go along. Good to have you all here. It has been we actually had a really, really good summer.
Yep.
You and I spent the whole summer studying some of the mystical texts, and it was quite enlightening.
Very. But as you know, we went over it twice so that we understood it, not just reading it. It's easy to read the Zohar, but it's not the easiest thing to understand.
Yeah, actually, we started out with the Bahir.
With the Bahir, yes.
And we did that twice.
Correct.
And then we went to the Sefer Yetzirah, and we went through that twice.
Correct.
And then we went to the Zohar, and we got into there. We were still into chapter, chapter 1, or actually book 1, somewhere around, got all the way to partway through Bereshit, and then we just kind of stopped at that point and said, no, wait a minute, we got to go back, and we have to unpack this verse by verse,
line by line.
Line by line. We went back and we started over again, and it was amazing the things that we were finding out as we were going through that. And we'll pick this
Aryel,
up.
may I ask the rabbi that is watching us, is he Orthodox, traditional, conservative?
We'll find out. I think, if I remember correctly, and Rabbi Wyckoff, you can, no, Rabbi Wyckoff, we did not study Tanya.
No.
At all.
No, and I will not.
But, and I'll let Rabbi Wyckoff answer for himself. I think he was actually I think it was actually brought up Orthodox. I think he actually served a conservative synagogue for many years, but we'll find out. I mean, that is if he wants to actually put it in there. It's it's up to him. So, anyway,
I'm also expecting a very good friend of mine. Her name is Jacqueline from Oklahoma, and I hope she's watching. It's her first time.
Rabbi Wyckoff says, I do not align with any denominations. Good for you. Good for you.
He's a good Yidala.
Yeah. Yeah, as we've been saying for years, a Jew is a Jew is a Jew.
This has been my problem, and this has been what you and I have been discussing. So let me go back. Being born in Romania after the Holocaust, my mother was in Auschwitz for 4 years with her sister and 5 other brothers and her parents. Thank you, Hashem. They all came back. For some reason, I guess God meant them to live. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. At home in Romania, I lived in a small town not far from Satmar, which was the Satmar Jews.
Yeah.
We had one synagogue. I went to school, came home, went to Cheder, went to Jewish school. Until there was Mincha and Marv, we went to the synagogue, which, well, the Cheder, the Jewish school, was in the synagogue. Came home, had supper, did homework, and went to bed. But I never heard of the word reform or conservative. A shul was a shul, a Jew was a Jew. That's it. That's all I knew. I did my bar mitzvah in Romania. I was 14 when I left Romania. Came to France, Paris. It just happened to be the week before Yom Kippur. And my father's friend that had left Romania before the Second World War said, I am a member of the synagogue. It's the biggest synagogue in the world. So we were invited to go to the Rothschild synagogue in Paris. I didn't ask him, we didn't know to ask. It was a synagogue. But as soon as I heard an organ play on Yom Kippur, I looked at my father and I said, what gives? So my friend said, that organ is the biggest organ in the world. You can hear it all over Paris. It takes 12 people to walk on the keys. And the only time it is played on Yom Kippur. That is the first time I heard my father's friend say, it's not 100% Orthodox, it's conservative. I was too young to try to understand, what do you mean not 100% Orthodox, but it's part conservative. But coming to Canada, then to the United States, I learned what the Reform Synagogue, what the Reform movement was, the conservative movement was, the Orthodox movement was, but then there's so many splinters. And then you have Chabad, which I don't consider it as being a religion. They're on their own. To me, I'm sorry if I call them a cult, but it is considered. I consider it, and God forgive me if I'm wrong, but because they make up their own rule. I did go to their synagogue for 15 years because it was the only closest synagogue for me to walk on Shabbos. I follow Shabbos rules. I used to run across the golf course, the fourth hole, so I wouldn't walk the 2,000 steps that I was allowed on Shabbos. But they made up their own rules. Then you have the splinters, you have the Satmars, you have the Breslov, you have Chabad. There's
and
so
the more
much
modern
difference.
Orthodox and Reconstructionist and
Egalitarian.
the humanistic.
But one of my big problems still is, are actually we the rabbis, we are supposed to be the mores of our flocks. We are supposed to be the teacher of our flocks. People don't know. I can stop a person, a Jewish person on the street, and I'll ask him, what's the prayer for washing the hands? I can guarantee you 9 out of 10 wouldn't know. And it's not because they're ignorant or not. They never taught. They were never taught by their parents, by their grandparents. On Friday night in my house, actually in my grandparents' house, before we sat down for dinner, me and my brother, may he rest in peace, we sat on my grandfather's knees, and he blessed us. And my father had his hands on me and my brother's heads. And then my grandfather would get up, and my father would get up and put the hands on my mother, and my grandfather on his wife. And they would say, Eshet Chayil. They would sing it. That wasn't just because they had to do it. That was a tradition. That was not law or anything. This was taught from generation to generation to generation. A woman is the queen of the house. And by the way, she is the cheapest labor because she can be a mother. She can also sometimes act as a father. She cooks, she cleans, and she doesn't get paid for it. And this is why she's the queen. She is the queen of the house. She is the most important thing in the house. That's why you say, Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. But it's forgotten. How many men on Friday night get up, put their hands on their wife and say, Eshet Chayil, you're the queen of the house. You're the woman of valor. How many fathers get up and call their children over and bless them?
Yeah. I mean, we do that at the beginning of our services. You know, we do the blessings for the children, then we do the Eshet Chayil, and then.
But I told you the story. You know, I was at Star of David. I probably hold the record. Me and Avi, may he rest in peace, he passed away 2 months ago. Mm-hmm. Me and Avi must have done minimum of 4,000 taharas in 22 years. Never took a cent for it. So I've seen both sides of the fence. I've seen people alive. I've watched at least 4,000 men, their bodies, clean their fingernails, their hair, wash their bodies, put them in a shroud, put them in a box, so he can be buried as supposed to be buried as a Jew. So I did a funeral because a lot of times you do the tahara. The family will say, Rabbi, you honored my father, you honored my mother. Okay, well the women did the women. Don't misunderstand me. But would you do the funeral? I said, of course. So I did a funeral, and it was in the days in between a holiday. I don't know if it was Sukkot or whatever it was. And I finished the funeral, and there was another rabbi, maybe, I don't know, 50, 60 feet away from me. He was doing an unveiling. And he was doing the Kel Mori Rachmin. So he was older than me, so I went over just to pay respects, and I shook hands, and I said, Rabbi, you've been a puppet rabbi for 25 years. You don't say that. So he looked at me and said, well, they don't know any better. Yeah. What was I supposed to answer?
Yeah, but you do. That's the answer. I mean, you know better.
Of course I know better.
No, I meant he.
A puppet rabbi who's probably, he had a big, like I said, a big synagogue, probably making $200,000-$300,000 a year salary. And he says he don't know better. But you're the moreh, you're the teacher. If their parents didn't teach them, but you're supposed to teach them. But you don't care as long as you get paid for the unveiling. You don't care. First of all, you're doing something wrong to God because you're not supposed to do it. And then you do a dishonor to the deceased and to the family because they don't know any better because you didn't teach them. So how many sins have you committed?
Well, maybe you should explain the laws on El Malei Rachamim.
it is, you do it, El Muli Rachamim, you do it every funeral.
Right.
You start the funeral with, God is given, God is taken away, may his name be blessed forever. Then what do you do after that? The Lord is my shepherd. You do the psalm, you do the eulogy, you ask people to speak about the deceased. The funeral is not for the deceased, the funeral is for the family. That's why we Jews don't not supposed to wear black at a funeral, because we don't mourn the deceased. And these are the small things. These are traditionally that have been carried forward for thousands of years. That was carried because my grandfather took his time. Because if I did something wrong, he would tell me. And he would say, don't do it again. The reason why you don't do it. It's not just say, okay, you're not supposed to do it. And you leave the kid sitting there saying, huh? What do you mean by that? So he would explain. He would take his time. He would put his hand around your shoulder, nice, with love and caring, and say, Ancel, or my brother, may he rest in peace, Isaac, you don't do those things. You don't play soccer on Yom Tov or on Shabbos. Why? I said, well, it's just to play. Yeah, but you're stepping on grass and you're ripping grass, and that's one of the things you don't do on Shabbat. So then you understand. I was 10 years old and I was asked by my grandfather, and I said, it is time for you to start. He didn't say do it all. It's time for you to start teaching yourself and trying to fast. You fast as long as you can. When you get to the bar mitzvah, you should be able to fast the whole day.
Right.
And these things were explained by the rabbi, by the shochet, by your teacher in Jewish school. And it's a family thing. And rabbis, especially when it comes to converts are more special to God than we are. You and I were born Jewish. We're born Jews. We got no choice. These converts are Jews by choice. So they're more important to God than we are. But we're supposed to teach them because it's new to them. They're new people. They have a new soul. They have a Jewish soul. You need to teach them. You need to give them direction. Otherwise, people get scared. Converts go two ways. One, just give it up. This is because we don't teach. One, they become so religious, they just go on. On the other end, they don't even want to talk to you. So I don't know. The reform movement now is changing. The reform movement realized that the importance of Torah and God, or Hashem, is important. So they're coming over leaning over more towards the orthodoxy. The conservative movement is gone totally towards the reform.
Yeah, I was actually, as most of the people watch know, that that the synagogue I came up in was a reform, and I, like I said, I got better, but the last time I was there, they just came out with a new siddur, and I picked up the siddur because I go there and try to get there at least once a year on the longest day of the year. I will try to get to to their Sabbath service because their Sabbath service is early. They get done early, and I have enough time to be able to drive home, and I actually can get home before sundown, and I can, do the kiddush and the motzi here. But when I went there and I saw the new siddur, and I started leafing through it, and I started taking a look at it, and I came into this one section, I said, this is actually pretty orthodox. which actually quite surprised me that having seen the old gates of prayer and the interim prayer book and stuff like that they did a lot of kind of playing around with the prayers and stuff like that. And I opened up the new Siddur, and here is one that's almost like the one that I pray out of every day.
Yeah, but I also saw that they have a special kiddush for a special kaddish for black Americans, a special kaddish for the Floyd family. They have a special kaddish or kiddush, whatever they call it, before you go into chemotherapy. I mean, there's a prayer, for healing, but I just don't. A synagogue is a synagogue. It's always been a synagogue. Okay? What is this new term, temple? A Jewish school or a university like Yeshiva University? What is JTS? Jewish Theological Seminary? What's this? Why don't they have priests and nuns there? I don't get it. I mean, it's a confusing title.
Yeah, use the terminology that we use. JTS is the conservative.
A theological seminary in Israel. I don't know.
What?
It's created so much divisiveness that we have to come back to Hashem. We have to come back to Torah. We have to come back. This is why, to me, my day is not done. My day is not happy unless I study with my achi, with my friend, with my brother. His name is Aryel. That gives me peace of mind. It gives my soul peace. It gives my heart grows knowing. Most people don't know Aryel. Aryel is a real tzaddik, believe it or not. As far as I am concerned, he is a tzaddik. His knowledge is just not Torah. He has, I would say, maybe they're not degrees, but he has a lot of degrees. But he has more knowledge than most professors would have knowledge. And it doesn't come it didn't come to him. He studied. He has a head for it. And this is why I look forward. Like, my day is not complete unless doesn't matter what we study, whether it's the Zohar or we study laws of the holy days, the laws of Shabbat. Most people don't know. The laws of Shabbat is a 2-year course. It's not just, you get out of bed, get dressed, and go to synagogue, but
you didn't happen.
Simple rules.
You forgot to mention that I dragged you into the Mishgiach course.
Yeah, we both graduated from the Mishgiach course. But this whole thing. I mean, if I ask 10 people, even in who's watching, and no disrespect to the rabbi who's watching, what a blech is, they would look at me and you and everybody else and say, huh? What is a blech? They don't know.
Yeah, that's old Europe.
Yes.
Yeah. So, some people call it a samovar, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. If you're going to make yourself a tea on Shabbos or a coffee, how many cups do you need? To make it drinkable. But these are basic knowledge that we can teach the people. And it's not just going into a strict religion. I always told my people, and even my converts, and if Jacqueline is listening, she'll know. Judaism is a law. You can bend it. You cannot break it. You can bend. Sometimes, like Yom Kippur, if you're diabetic or you have high blood pressure, you don't have to fast.
Right.
You don't. It's not just halacha is not just cut and dry. This is why the Gemara, that's the Gemara and everything else. It is just rabbis arguing between each other, but they can never come up with a conclusion.
Yeah.
They never come up with a conclusion. They argue with it, and you can say he's right and he's a little right. I mean, you listen to some of the best heads, Feinstein and Caro and all these. These guys were not just rabbis. They knew everything. They were doctors. They knew history. They knew geography. They knew everything. What do rabbis now know? Don't know.
Yeah.
Then you have the other side. Chabad, Rabbi Schneerson, may he rest in peace. Have nothing against him. He said that every Jewish boy before he gets married must be a rabbi. So they study exactly, because Rabbi Lieberman, where I used to go, every year he used to get between 10 and 20 students. They studied for 10 months. What did they study? Yoredeya, the law, and Tanya. And that gives you the right to be a rabbi. Rabbi of what?
Yeah. Didn't you tell me that when they get their smicha that it only says yoreh?
Only yoreh. It doesn't say yoreh, only
right.
yoreh. But what does it really mean? It's either yoreh or nothing.
Yeah.
You know, how many rabbis do you know that have yoreh, yadin? There's not that many rabbis, or they shouldn't. And I have made mistakes. I have made a rabbi a few years ago that I am thinking, and Aryel knows him, that we were both thinking of defrocking him because he lied. And that's something that's lying heavily on my heart and on my conscience. It's a decision for me and Aryel to come up with, because you don't want to destroy this person's life. And this is why for a rabbi to have the designation of Yadin, to be a judge, people believe that is an easy thing. You think it's easy to judge or to sit in judgment of, let's say, two people, but to sit in judgment when it comes to a get, to a divorce, 99.9% of rabbis would not know how to write a get, because they get a sofer who knows how to write a get, and that's it. He doesn't even know what the content of the get is.
Well, let's catch up with
he writes the get, and that's it.
Let's catch up with the chat room here.
Most rabbis wouldn't know how to fill out a ketubah, or an Orthodox ketubah, because that's the Orthodox ketubah is the only ketubah that is recognized worldwide. Because if you get a conservative ketubah or you get a reform ketubah, I already told you, Aryel, what you can do with that ketubah.
Asher. Let's catch up with the chat room. You got to take a breath every once in a while just so I can get a word in.
I told you I was going to be on fire.
Yeah. So just remember to breathe every once in a while. That way I can sneak in here. So let's catch up.
I got the oxygen bottle.
Let's catch up with the chat room. Most of the comments in here are from Rabbi Wyckoff. He says we were talking about the blessings. He says that on Friday night that you bless your children. He says that they do it at their Sabbath meal.
You see, that's what a real rabbi is, because he knows. You understand, and that's the importance, because then he shows it to his children. Then his children will do the same thing. It goes from generation to generation to generation. If you stop teaching, generation's over.
Okay, so Rabbi Wyckoff goes on. The unveiling ritual is brief and is custom, not Jewish law, so that there is a fair amount of leeway regarding content. That's the unveiling he's talking about. He said typically we result. Now he's talking about the funeral. Typically we result Psalm 23. Al Maleh Rachamim, the Mourner's Kaddish, and other readings or poems that resonate with those present and were beloved by the deceased.
But you see, most people.
Well, hang on,
Yeah.
because you made a comment, but you didn't explain it. Okay. Now you said that the rabbi was wrong doing the Al Maleh Rachamim. Well, why was he wrong?
Because halacha says that in the days between a holiday, you do not say there's a special prayer, and I'm sorry, I can't say because I'm not at an unveiling or at a funeral, but there's a special prayer that is said on the days in between a holiday.
Chol HaMoed, right?
Yep.
And so on Chol HaMoed, you don't say the Al Maleh Rachamim.
You do not. So, it's the same thing. People used to worry when you used to do a funeral, and then people started to walk away, and I said, whoa, wait a second. I says, what about the Kaddish? I says, well, my rabbi, why don't you say the Kaddish? I said, no. I can't say the Kaddish. I'm still seeing the deceased. I still see the casket. He has to be totally covered, and then I will say Kaddish, and you have to stay here. So it would take another 20, 30 minutes, and they didn't like it. But that is law. That is halacha. You're not supposed to say Kaddish unless the kever is covered.
Yeah. Okay, so Rabbi Wyckoff goes on. Actually, what he was talking about, the Psalms and the Al Maleh Rachamim was talking about, he was referring back to the unveiling again. But he goes on to say that, when we were talking about why you shouldn't wear black, I believe that's what he was referring to, why we don't wear black at funeral. He says that is because Judaism is a religion of life, and this has to do with fasting. Okay. That is because Judaism is a religion of life, and it would harm your life. You are excused, however, you should eat less. This was the whole fasting thing.
Tell the rabbi if he was here, I would shake his hands, because that's the way it is, and this is why I appreciate it, because he knows. Forget that he was a rabbi of Reformed or he comes from. He knows his stuff. Period. And this is what my contention has been, that not every, because where did the word rabbi come from? It's just a name made up. That name of rabbi, you used to call him moreh. It's a teacher. And that is our job, is to teach our flock. It is to teach our flock, because if we don't teach, Judaism eventually will die. It will die out.
Yeah.
This is why you've seen there's hundreds and hundreds of synagogues that go under. Why? Is because either people get bored, people don't know anything, people get peeved at the rabbi, and this is what you have Reformed synagogues with an Orthodox rabbi. How can an Orthodox rabbi sit in a Reformed synagogue and there's music played and there's instruments played? I guess you want to call it a law of survival. It may be. There's thousands and thousands of rabbis. They all need to earn a living.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the issue. I mean, we see so many synagogues closing. I mean, even where I live, we used to have two very large synagogues. Each one of them had about 3,000 members each. Both of them are closed. Well, they've kind of united into a smaller one. And then we have have a Chabad house. So we have a Reform and a Conservative in the one building, and then Chabad house just down the street, but we have no Orthodox shul in this area. Shuls are closing all over the place. I mean, I could go, from Flint, I can go to Saginaw. The very beautiful synagogue that they had in Saginaw, now closed. The one that they had in Midland, which is just north of Saginaw, now closed. The one in Bay City, just north of Saginaw, closed. And we're seeing them closing all over the place. And they say, well, it's because, and I get it, that, the economy in Michigan is not that great. Young people have moved out of the area, and the older generation is passing on, and the synagogues just don't have the people anymore, and the young people just are not coming.
Listen, in a way, I can also see the young people. Now you young people get married. They both have to work. Economy is bad, and we're not going to get into politics because then I'll really explode. But yes, a woman works now. This is why I said woman is cheapest labor. Now she has to work. She has to come home. She has to deal with children. She has to cook. She has to clean. I mean, it's not fair, but this is the way it is. And they, and some of them have to work on Shabbos. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they say, well, we'll get somebody else. That's the law of survival. So it's a tough situation, But I'm just hoping that, things turn around economy-wise, and we as rabbis take more responsibilities and teach the people, especially Congress, because my heart hurts for them because, they come out of that mikvah. They have a new heart and a new soul. They need direction. They need to be taught. They need to be told, not just say, okay, here's the prayer for Friday night to lighting the candles, but you don't tell them the reason why. Why is the honor? Why is it a big mitzvah on Friday night for a couple to have sex? It says right on the Torah. You should enjoy your wife. You work hard all week, but you need to explain to them, not just, well, Friday night, your week is over, have sex. but you explain to them nicely why. And that gets into their heads. You tell them 2 or 3 times, they never forget. The same thing with lighting the candles. The same thing with making a motzi or over the wine. You teach them, say it to them, repeat it 2 or 3 times. I can guarantee you they'll never forget it.
Well, that's we were talking about the synagogues getting smaller and stuff. It's an interesting point that, we're seeing the Orthodox or the Reform and the conservative, Reconstructionists, synagogues are closing down. Their congregations are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But what's the biggest growing sect, I guess you could call it, of Judaism?
Orthodoxy.
It's Orthodox and Haredi.
Haredi, yes.
Yeah, so that kind of made me curious. Of course, go back to the Torah, and the Torah actually explains it to you right there, and it says that that I will the sins of the father I will pass on to the 3rd and 4th generation, to the sons and daughters, the 1st, 3rd, and 4th generation, and what that means is basically, and according to Rashi and stuff, that that what the father does, the children will emulate.
Of course.
And then when the children emulate it, their children will emulate it. However, what we're seeing and what we've seen for a long time is that when they go away, it's usually the 3rd or the 4th generation that actually returns. And when they return, they're not coming back Reformed, they're not coming back conservative, they're coming back Orthodox or Haredi. or Hasidic. They're embracing their Judaism to a very great extent.
Because they see that the importance to them in their lives is what the Reform movement said. They denied that Torah in halacha is old stuff. Please explain to me, what is old stuff? Yeah. Do you want Hashem to send another Moses down now with the 10 tablets, and it's going to say it's the same Torah? It is the same Torah, and the Torah never changed.
Well, I think what they're finding is that there's an emptiness. There's an emptiness there that they have to fill it. Mm-hmm. And what they're finding out is that Reform and conservative just doesn't fill that hole for them. You know, I mean, it's genetic. It's in their genes. You know, they're Jews. You know, and if that piece is missing, there's a piece of their physical body and their soul that is actually missing, and they're going to look for it, and they want to fill that hole. I
told you Bar Mitzvah happened to be a Reform synagogue. Well, I came in with my tallis. My tallis has a silver atara. Yeah. And the guy looked at me and says, "What is that?" And I stopped. I didn't know what to say. You mean you don't know what an atara is? They looked at me because I have a full tallis. They wear that 6-inch or 8-inch wide tallis. That's not a tallis. That's, to me, it's a scarf.
Yeah.
So it's not the big stuff. It's just the basic. You remember what happened to me? Was it a month ago, 2 months ago? I had a family call me for a wedding.
Yeah.
And then the fight started. Well, Rabbi, you know this is my wedding, and I'm going to do what I want to do. And I said, okay. Well, what's the problem? Well, I don't want to wear a tallis. I said, do you know the reason why you wear a tallis? No. So then why do you say you don't want to wear tallis? So I explained to them that tallis, basically it has no real religious connotation. I always tell young ladies when you come into a synagogue, the right synagogue, and if you see a man or a nice gentleman in a suit and he's got no tallis, grab him, he's single. If he's got a tallis on, he's married, stay away. So a tallis under the chuppah is just a sign of marriage. He says, well, I don't want to wear it. I said, okay. You know, I was going to say something in Yiddish, but then I had to bite my tongue. Then he says to me, well, I don't want to wear a yarmulke. Now, that kind of finished me off. So why don't you wear a yarmulke? I says, you're telling me you came from an Orthodox home and you wear a yarmulke, so now you're rebelling. Yes, I'm rebelling against my parents. And I said, why? He said, well, that's my personal problem. I said, I'm sorry, I apologize, it's not my business. So he says, are you going to do the wedding? I said, no. I suggest you get yourself a priest. And that was the end of it. And I would have gone along without a tallis. Not very happy about it. To me, a real wedding for a man is a kittel, a tallis, and a yarmulke. That is not religious. That is tradition. Mm-hmm. A kittel you wear just to remind you that one day you're going to wear it when you're going to God. A wedding is considered the kittel because a wedding is considered like Yom Kippur. But if these people are not told the reasons why it is considered, that's why you fast on the day of your wedding, because it is like Yom Kippur. But if you don't tell your people, how are they supposed to know?
Yeah.
And I sit daily, and you sit, and the rabbi that's listening, we get frustrated because it's people are looking at us, and they said, well, Rabbi, you never told us about that. So we're to blame, not the people. starts at home. My father, may he rest in peace, and my grandfather, may he rest in peace, said the first 7 years of a child's life, that's where he gets his character. This is the basic, not school. It's the teacher from home, your father, your grandparents. That's who teaches you. That's the basics of life. Yeah, you learn at school. There's nothing wrong with school. There's nothing wrong with cheder. But it's we, and I told you tonight I'm going to take it out on some of the rabbis. But they say the truth hurts, but it's the truth.
Well, before you go too much farther, we're at our halfway point, so I'm going to turn you down because I can, and we're going to take our break. We're going to take a 6-minute break, and when we return, we'll hear more about what is bothering Rabbi Ancel. So, everybody, please stay tuned. We'll be back in 6.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And as promised, we are back. So let us continue on with our discussion here. And let me bring, let's put his picture up back here first. And let's bring Rabbi Ancel back in and say, Rabbi Ancel, don't candy coat it. Just say what you mean.
Of course. Anyways, so from Canada, I lived quite a few years there. I came to the United States because I joined the Navy. I spent 18 years. I retired as a captain in the Navy. And I went through 4 wars. And so I've seen, like I said, I've seen both sides of the fences. When I retired, I was invited to come to the Dominican Republic because there were some Jews here in the Dominican Republic that are descendants of the 1,200 Jews that came by boat to the United States in 1942. And they were refused entry into the United States by the President of the United States. But there was a dictator here in the Dominican Republic. His name was Trujillo, and he said he found out that Jewish people are knowledgeable people and this, and he only had farmers here, and it was a nothing country. He says, send me 1 million. Anyway, so he accepted them. He gave them thousands of, well, he was a dictator, he owned the island. He gave them thousands upon thousands of acres, and they developed it, and they built the city of Puerto Plata, the city of Sosua, where I lived for 11 years. And I met the offsprings from these people. They knew nothing. So they said, well, do you want to be our rabbi? And I said, of course. He says, are you going to open up a Jewish school? I says, of course. Are you going to do weddings and this? I said, that's part of Jewish life. I'm going to do funerals too. You have a cemetery? They said, yeah, we have two. I'm not going to get into that story, but anyways, so they said to me, well, what are you going to charge us? And I thought to myself, I was in front of the board, and I said, so if I'm going to be the rabbi and do services, in the mornings and mostly on Shabbos, because In the summertime, most of them go back to the United States. So they come back in September just before Rosh Hashanah, and they stay till the end of the
Nope, so we lost Rabbi Ancel. So hopefully he'll pop back in here. So give it a second.
Invite all
Okay,
you
you dropped out there for a minute.
Okay. Where did I leave off?
Well, you were talking about the weddings, and you were staying in front of the board.
So they asked me how much would I charge them for a month. So as a joke, I said $500 a month. They said, "Oh my God, we cannot afford that." Meanwhile, these people were living in multi-million-dollar homes. They still are. They live in not houses. They live in factories, 10, 15, 20,000 square feet. But because when they built them, it didn't cost them anything. Now, those days, probably that house is probably worth $300,000-$400,000, and that's a lot of money. But now they're worth millions. But anyways, that's the story of the Jews of the Dominican, unfortunately. So my concentration is mainly with Gerim, with Converse. There's a good friend and a beautiful lady and a very important lady to me. Her name is Jacqueline from Oklahoma. And she studies with me. She's going to be studying with me. She's going to start an entry level, the Zohar, but we study halacha, we study Jewish law, and she is willing, and that makes me feel good. That makes my soul feel good. And this is what the importance is to me. I do a lot of weddings. I do a lot of bar and bat mitzvahs. I've been lucky that in the 22 years that I've done quite a few weddings, I've only done 2 divorces, which is also very good. Jewish people usually don't get divorced, as far as I know. And I'm 75 years old, thank God I feel good. And this has been my life, and this has been what hope that one day maybe I won't see it, but maybe the next generation will see an upswing in Judaism is people need to find their belief, and most importantly, they need to find their faith. I wrote my thesis for my ordination on the difference between belief and faith, and people. And my master said there is no, but there is a big difference. Belief, it comes from the head. Just the same way you can go to 10 doctors and 10 rabbis, you'll get 20 different opinions. But that's the way life is. But faith, the only place where faith is in your heart. And thank God that faith, the heart, la corazón, they say it in Spanish, it does not know how to lie. And if you find your faith and you have faith in Hashem, Hashem will help you. Hashem will listen to you if you ask. Hashem works in many different ways, in many wonderful ways. You may not actually see it, but it's a feeling. It's a feeling. When I used to do Atahara, and I've discussed it with Aryel, when I used to do Atahara, I used to feel a heaviness when I used to go into the prep room. And when I walked out, I felt good, and I felt honored that I was able to honor this person, to send this person to God the way God meant it to be. And that made me feel good, even though I was dealing with somebody who was no longer alive. But people used to come, the family used to come to me, and they used to say, "Ancel, please look after my dad, look after my uncle, look after my grandfather." One of the nicest persons that I had the pleasure to meet, and I buried his grandfather, was a singer. He was a Chabad. Because they call him, what's his name? The Jamaican singer, Marley. They call him the Chabad Marley, Matisiato. And I buried his grandfather, and we became friends. And just to look at him at the funeral, to him to actually sing for his grandfather, that filled my heart. And I have had the pleasure of meeting a lot of good people. And I met somebody who's a comedian. He played his role as George, if you know his name.
Oh, Jason Alexander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I finished
George
the funeral.
Costanza.
It's funny. It's funny, but it doesn't matter to me. I was finished the funeral, and I was walking down towards Star of David, towards the building, and I looked and I said, "Oh my God, this is Jason." So he comes over to me. He says, "Excuse me, sir, are you a rabbi?" And I said, "Yes." He says, "I'm looking for my grandfather's tomb. And would you say a prayer?" I said, "I just finished the funeral." I said, "But if you want, sure." So, anyways, we found the grave, and I said a prayer, and I did the kelmul, and I did the kaddish. So he goes to his wallet. He took out a $5 bill. I mean, the only thing I said is, I said, "Sir, if the $5 means so much to you," I says, "I think you need it more than I do." And I walked away. So, you meet a different gamut of different people. But that's part of life, and I didn't mind. But like I said, I have met a lot of nice people. I did the funeral for a senator, a Jewish senator that unfortunately I don't have much respect for. I did the funeral for his father.
Okay, so Rabbi Wyckoff has a very interesting question in here.
Yeah.
And he wants to know, what mikvah do you use?
A good story. A mikvah, I mean, like I said, I went to Chabad. I davened there because, like I said, it was the closest thing for me. The Bresler roof from New York came, and he wanted to use the Rabbi Lieberman's Chabad mikvah. He walked into the mikvah, and he took one look, and he says, "I am not going in there. It ain't kosher." Anyways, what mikvah do I use? It's called the Atlantic Ocean. That's God's mikvah.
Yeah. Okay. So he also wants to know, are your conversions recognized in Israel? And before you answer that, I just want to let those people who are watching know that Rabbi Ancel is the chief rabbi of the Dominican Republic. So you can answer.
Yes, they are recognized. I've had a few people who have made aliyah, and they are recognized because it's when I do a conversion, it's not just a piece of paper that says it's a full file, and when we do the mikvah, I need people that watch and go and see that the person does the mikvah. I need signatures. I need proof. They need to do their homework. I don't.
But you actually register them in Israel.
I send it to the ambassador, to the Israeli ambassador here in Dominican, and then he forwards it to the record keepers in Jerusalem. This is why, and the other thing is, the only ketubah that I issue is the Orthodox ketubah. If people want a Reform ketubah or a conservative ketubah, the actual body of the ketubah, I tell them to go get a conservative rabbi, because the ketubah, the Orthodox ketubah, most people know, and the rabbi knows that most Orthodox Jews do not go to City Hall to get married.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been recognized that the Orthodox ketubah is the equivalent of a civil. This is why a Orthodox ketubah cannot be signed by family member, because God forbid that there's a divorce. They can see conflict of interest. So a ketubah cannot be signed. I don't care if it's the number 6 or the 7th cousin in the family. It cannot be blood relative. The same thing, I will not accept a family member doing on the mikvah certificate. I will not accept a lady rabbi signature on the conversion certificate. If it's a lady rabbi, I will not recognize it. And in Israel will not recognize it either.
So Rabbi Wyckoff goes on to say that the chief rabbi of Israel, and we've actually had this discussion before.
Yeah.
The chief rabbi of Israel has put out a list of rabbis whose conversions are acceptable in the U.S. Okay, so let's qualify that. It's in the U.S.
Yeah, but this. Do you have an idea how many thousands of rabbis there are in the U.S.? That's a list made up by whatever it is. What about Canada? What about Europe?
Well, how about the Dominican? I mean, he said many very respected rabbis are not accepted.
Of course, but that's their decision. Listen, it's you take a look at Israel right now. I would say 90% of Israel is secular.
Yeah.
You have the Supreme Court that has a Druze that's member of the Supreme Court. You have an Arab who's a member of the Supreme Court. This is not to no disrespect. Not saying that the person doesn't deserve to be, but since when? Since when do you have an Arab part of the Jewish Supreme Court? Because I don't know if the rabbi is familiar. A few years ago, the Supreme Court came out with a ruling regarding conversions within Israel and chutz la'aretz, which means out of Israel. Nobody accepted it. How can somebody accept a reform or conservative conversion when the Supreme Court says, "Niet, no"? Why do a conversion ruin somebody's life? You have somebody. I've had a few families that went there. They did aliyah, and with children. Can you imagine if they would go there and they say, "Yeah, I am a giur," and they'll say, "Do you have your certificates?" And they'll say, "Yes." And can you imagine them saying, "It's worthless. You have to do it over again"?
But the secular government in Israel does accept them, reform and conservative conversions, and will actually allow them to immigrate to Israel, make aliyah.
Reform or conservative within Israel or chutz la'aretz, out of Israel?
Out of Israel.
Out of Israel? Are you saying that they're doing it now?
They've been doing it.
That's not what the Supreme Court said.
I don't know. Maybe it's changed, but I know that they were registering. I'm trying to think of who was president at that time. Anyway, they were registering reform and conservative. Well, maybe I don't know. Maybe they were registering it in the reform organization in Israel. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe that's what I don't know.
There's a big difference. There's a big difference, and I'm sure the rabbi knows. If you're going to do aliyah and you're a giur and you have a certificate from either reform or conservative for the reason of aliyah, yes, it is accepted. That's just for the aliyah, to become a citizen.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that they recognize you as a Jew. There's a lot of non-Jews living in Israel.
Yeah. Okay, but isn't that kind of misleading?
It is misleading because they're saying you converted according to Jewish law, Reform law, conservative law, whatever. Here's what it said. Now this is a few years ago. They may have changed it. It said any conversions that are done by Reform, listen carefully, by Reform or conservative rabbis, chutz la'aretz, are recognized in Israel for the reason of Aliyah, but not Orthodox. And they say, well, what gives? What do you mean no Orthodox? He says, it's the same thing what happened when I ran the Chevra Kadisha for the state of Florida. But Chabad has one way of doing a Tahara. Breslov has a way of doing a Tahara. They have a different way. They used to say, well, you guys are all Orthodox. Why can't you come together and make one rule? Make one rule. So I wrote the Tahara for Chabad, but Breslov didn't recognize it. They said, to us it's worthless. Then the Satmas came in, they said, well, the Breslovs are wrong, and so is Chabad. So they said that Orthodox is not recognized. But any conversions done, Reform, conservative, or Orthodox, Be'aretz, in Israel, is recognized. So there's a difference. But it was when it's done inside Israel, it's inside Israel. But when you come out from Chutz La'aretz, from out of Israel, it is only for the purpose of Aliyah, so you can stay in Israel.
Okay, well,
there are Reform synagogues, there are conservative synagogues, and there are Orthodox synagogues in Israel.
Yeah.
By the ton. So you'll go to a Reform synagogue and you show them the certificate and they'll say, welcome. What does that really mean?
Still there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What does it really mean? So you issue a conversion certificate, and the people says, oh, thank you, Rabbi. You know, I made Aliyah, and they have accepted. They let me stay in Israel, and I'll do what I want. So he'll do what he wants. He'll go whatever he wants, and he'll follow whatever he wants. He wants to follow Reform Judaism. He'll follow Reform Judaism. This is what been my biggest cry. You know, and everybody, and every time on Yom Kippur and on Rosh Hashanah, they say, you know, B'Shana Haba'ah B'Yerushalayim, and everybody's screaming, where is Mashiach? Well, I'm sorry, we don't deserve it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, I may sound that it's cruel, or I may sound that I'm sounding off. I'm not. I'm just telling you the way it is. And you know, and this is why I'm trying to change and to do the right thing, because it has not been done the right thing. And it's our responsibility to teach people. And the more we talk, the more we teach, the more we have shows like this, the more we talk about Torah, the more we talk about not in-depth halacha, just the basics. Because once you learn the basics, the rest of it comes easy. The Zohar is not the easiest thing to learn. You shouldn't get into it, because most people are not even mature enough to even read it. People think it's easy to understand. I mean, it took me in Aryel just a few chapters to go over it twice. and we still don't know everything. But most people, like you have the big actors, they'll pay $6 for a bottle of water because it's Kabbalah. And then they get into the bad sections of the Zohar. They get into numerology. They get into the book of curses, the book of this, and the book of that. And that's not healthy. Stay away from it because you get yourself into real trouble.
Yeah, well, we only went in. You and I sitting here studying between an hour and a half each night. We did 11 sessions on the Zohar, and then we just stopped and we said we got to go back. We got to go back, and we have to start all over again.
Yep.
And
I'll tell you something else. If we went back at it the third time, your eyes would be even more open because then you started connecting because it is not. That's why they tell you got to be at least 40 years old and mature enough, which in a way is right because for women it's different. Most men are not mature enough till about the age of 40. But it's not something for everybody.
Well, we even
not for everybody.
We even got to take a breath every once in a while so I can get a word in.
Okay, now stop.
So I said we even when we were going through that, even in the Sefer Yetzirah and in the Behir, we had actually came into sections there that we went, wait a minute. This could be very easily misinterpreted.
Yeah.
And that's the danger if you don't have a good solid grounding in Torah, and you're not studying with somebody who is at least a Torah scholar. It's very easy. You end up like Rabbi Avuya. You become a heretic.
Yeah, but you remember he used to stop and say, wait a second, I don't agree with this. But then when we went through it the second time, I said, oh, wait a second, they're right. Is because you can interpret something that is just not right. Yeah. And like I said, the more you learn, the more you repeat. And this is with everything. It's with everything. It's with life.
Well, that's why we study the Torah year-round, because every time we come around, we learn something new in there.
The section that we are studying now, it takes 2 years to finish. And then you're going to turn around and study it over again for another 2. That's 4 years.
Well, we spent one whole evening just discussing the Rose of Sharon.
Yep.
We spent our whole, the time that we were there, we were a little over an hour. We spent just simply digging into what is the Rose of Sharon and what does it mean in this one phrase there. And I mean, it was actually fascinating when we.
Believe it or not, I didn't know.
Neither did I. I was. I mean, because I've read it. I've read it numerous times, and I just until you and I started going through it and going, wait a minute. If it's a rose, it's got to have more petals than this. And then we started looking into it. It's
only 13 petals.
Yeah, we started, digging into what it was, and is it actually a rose? No, it's not a rose. Something says it's a crocus, and that's wrong. It's not a crocus. It's a hibiscus. And so anyway, I mean, it was fascinating because we would get stuck on one word and we would just dig into it to find out, and it was just absolutely fascinating.
But that is the only way you're going to learn.
Yeah.
And it's easy. Like I said, you can take the entire Zohar, read it, and finish it in 2 or 3 months. If you're a fast reader, what are you going to get out of it?
Exactly. Well, that's the same like as other tomes where we talk like Likutei Moharan, which I have read through Likutei Moharan probably close to a dozen times.
Listen, I read Tanya twice. I don't know how to explain it. That's all. It basically deals with is tzimtzum, and it's to explain it to a lay person. It's not the easiest thing because I did not understand it at the beginning, but the more you read it about it, and there's nothing wrong with reading or studying the Tanya, but it's not part of, how shall I say, Ashkenazi and Sephardic. It's Chabad. That's the only people that study Tanya is Chabad. I don't know if the Bresler or the Satmars would ever study Tanya. And I'm not saying it's wrong to study it. It's nothing wrong to understand it. But it's not part of the Ashkenazi Sephardic curriculum. Our curriculum is the Torah. Torah, the Talmud, the Mishnah.
Yep.
What does the other rabbi say?
Let's see. He says, I studied Tanya with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz, of blessed memory. Okay. Let's see. Catch up here.
Donald has been quiet tonight.
No, actually, he's been posting in here. Basically, he's kind of been chatting with Rabbi Wyckoff.
Okay.
So, let's see. I may have to scroll back here. Yeah, we already talked about that. Return to Israel, okay. Rabbi Wyckoff says, understanding the Zohar is a lifetime commitment.
Amen to that.
You can go through it 10 times and just barely start to get it. Yeah.
Should I tell him the story, my story with the Zohar? Because I studied the Zohar solidly for 15 years.
Well, that's up to you if you want to.
We know we are humans, and to be human is to err, and we have all commit weaknesses and moments of weaknesses. We will make mistakes. And I had 3 friends that I used to play. I love the game of bridge, and we used to play Sunday nights at each other's houses. At one of these nights, another gentleman came in from another town. He brought in cheese pizza and a bottle of whiskey. I had pizza, but I don't drink liquor. So being a pilot, I never drank liquor. So anyways, his wife had a baby. Oh, so mazel tov and everybody. So he came over to me and we drank tea. Anyways, so he drank one. He said, Ancel, read me my piece. I said, no. Well, I'm a father, first-time father. Right? No. Well, he bugged me long enough, and I said, okay. And I read it. I put the cup down, and we continued. I said, no. So now you're going to tell me what you read? I said, no. And I kept on saying, no. Anyways, I said, you really want to know? I said, you're not going to like it. And I said, it says, this is what I see and this is what I feel, that your father will pass in 3 days. That's what I saw. And he passed away in 3 days. And I lost 4 friends. That's when I gave up reading the bad side of the Zohar, because I got into numerology as deep as you can. But you also know that when you get into numerology, you'll reach a point where there is no point. You can't go any further. Your brain is just brain dead. And a lot of people have ended up in hospitals, sick, neurologically sick, because of that. And that's one. And I started to study back the Zohar with you, Aryel. Now that's the first time. And it's been many, 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 many years.
Yeah.
Because I never forgave me for the mistake, because in a moment of weakness, I said what I said, and I wasn't supposed to, and I wasn't supposed to what I was supposed to do. But like I said, to be human is to err, and you make mistakes, and this is why we go on Yom Kippur. This is my big thing, because we Jews, we go on Yom Kippur and we speak to God and says, God, forgive me for things that I've done knowingly or unknowingly.
Yep.
I don't have to go to a priest to confess. He's a human being. He's not God. I confess to my Creator. They confess to a priest. Well, don't get it, but
Yeah.
listen, let them be healthy and happy. But I do what I do, and they do what they do.
Okay, so we have come to the end of the show. I'm going to turn you down for a
Hold
moment.
on a second. I think next week we should study how to fix Judaism.
Exactly. Yeah, we're going to carry on this conversation next week, and it's all fine and dandy to point out what the problems are and everything, but it's more important to say, okay, now what do we do? What do we do to fix it? So next week we'll kind of delve into that. What we think we need to do to get back on the right track.
If I offended anybody, I apologize.
I don't think you offended anybody, but okay. It's that month, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to turn you down. Hang on. I'll be back with you after we sign out.
Good night, people.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for being here this evening. Don't forget, tomorrow night is the Torah study in depth with yours truly, and Rabbi Ancel will be back to do this Torah study with us. And that's at 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. Eastern. Friday night is Kabbalat and Mariv Shabbat service at 8 p.m. and Shabbat morning at 10 a.m. is Shachrit and Musaf. And then right back here again on Monday for Zeta Story Corner at 8 p.m. So until the next time, everyone, let me take Rabbi Ancel's picture down, and we will just simply say, Laila Tov.